WL Shuffle, and this is our first modded hero guide. So I haven't done one of these. It's going to follow the format of my normal hero guides, but I know people have been asking me to make mod content. So we're going to talk about the new class that came out from Pepper, Iris, and the team, and that is 2B. If you ever played Nier Automata, you'll know 2B. And even if you haven't played the game, you probably recognize her because she's been used in other mediums, and since she looks cool, a lot of people just like to post her. Starting off, what is 2B good at? She does a lot of good, consistent damage, even more with Mark Synergy, but even without it, she puts out pretty respectable damage. Her second strength is actually her defenses. She has very good base resists, and she has solid HP and dodge. She has the same amounts as Bounty Hunter, but that is a very good stat line to follow. Her final strength is the fact that she has really good trinkets. I don't know if these are going to get nerfed at some point, but most of her trinkets are fantastic. For a lot of modded heroes, it's very difficult to say how weak they are or what they're bad at compared to others, because naturally a lot of modded content does power creep the base game. So 2B is a little bit stronger than vanilla DD1 is ready to accommodate. With that said though, her first weakness, if you can call it that, is that she mostly just brings damage to the team. Her closest comparison is Bounty Hunter, and BH is really good at also disrupting the enemy and locking them down with multiple stuns. 2B has one stun, but she also has a lot of damage for the rest of her kit. Her next weakness is that she does want her own trinkets. Regular base trinkets and stuff are fine for her, you can make them work, so the usual suspects like accuracy, crit, whatever, all of those work for her. But since 2B has different mechanics like debuffing herself with her pod skills, she really wants her own stuff. So if you can find her own trinkets for her so she can use those, then she performs way better than with just neutral trinkets. Her final weakness is you probably want to run other mods alongside her. Since she is a bit stronger than a lot of vanilla stuff in DD1, it's usually good if you have some other kind of modded enemy content to help it not seem as power crept as it will baseline. So any of those really popular extra enemy mods or zones like Sunward Isles or Koala's Creature Collection, that kind of stuff, you probably want to run something like that with her. Before we get into skills and all that, how do you play 2B? How do you play this character? She's actually not that difficult. Much like Bounty Hunter, she excels in rank 2 or 3. So put her in the middle of your party, then hit stuff as hard as you can because she does do good damage. And then finally, make sure that you have the ability to snipe certain kills with suppressing fire. Since suppressing fire does a little bit of damage, you can usually pick off something and then she gets a free action to hit something else, and it's very efficient in terms of turn economy. Next, we're going to talk about 2B skills and her trinkets too, and also we're going to show off her skins. So obviously we have regular 2B, but wait, did you want 2B with more assets? There it is. And if you played Nier, you'll know that sometimes her dress gets destroyed, essentially. I don't understand the logical or the story reason behind it. Maybe it's just for fun, but there you go. And then again with assets. And then this is 2P, I believe, if the wiki is correct, but she is like a 2B replica, but like inverted colors, and I think she started in Final Fantasy 14. Again, that's what the wiki said, but I remember playing that event, and so if you're wondering what this is, you know, why she looks different, it's because it's, you know, 2B but different, but still the same, you know, did the same purpose or whatever, and yeah. But again, same stuff in terms of skins, just everything's inverted. Okay, now we'll talk about skills. Her first skill, Slash, is a very stock, just regular hit, pretty solid accuracy at 110, and it has armor piercing against Mark plus bonus damage. So if you don't run Target Whistle or Mark for Death, which are the ones that shred prot, at least you have a way through it. So this kind of makes other marks viable, and that's pretty good. Next is Bash. Consistently, this can hit as hard or harder than Slash in my experience, which is a little weird. Like, Slash really needs the mark synergy, and if you don't have that, Bash is usually better outside of, like, you know, the accuracy and the targeting. But they're both good. Like, nothing on this character is bad, let me just say that. And then next is our first pod skill, which are her range attacks, and this is suppressing fire. Does a little bit of damage, a little crit, and you get a free action after it. So the best thing to do with this, especially like early game when your crit rates aren't super high, is you can just throw this out, get the minus crit debuff, and then follow up with like Bash, and usually it's pretty good damage, usually better than just a regular hit. Later on, this is still fine to use with her trinket that we'll talk about, but also just if something's at like 4 HP, you snipe that, and then you get an extra turn to hit something else. So she's really good at cleaning up kills. Next is the coolest looking attack I think she has, and that is Pod Beam. This just does a ton of damage. This was actually nerfed, if I am to be, or if the information I was given is correct, because I remember playing it last night and I think the damage mod was higher. But this hits really hard. So if you don't have her up front for Slash and stuff, then this is usually, almost always, a better alternative to Slash, especially with her pod trinket that we'll look at later. And then we have On Sight, which is just her mark skill. So she marks the target, she gives herself some bonus crit, and then the whole party gets a crit buff against any marked target. So she's got really good mark synergy, and I like the idea of a mark that, you know, adds other party utility too, because I mean they all take off prod or dodge or something like that, but this is a different way to do it, you know, if you don't have someone that gets bonus damage against marks, so it's really cool. Then we have Spin Kick. This is essentially Bounty Hunter's uppercut, and so with this, it's just the same thing. You know, you hit something, you knock it back, you stun it. Does good stuff there. Then there's Executioner's Instinct. This one is not as complicated as you think. And really the only thing I find myself doing with this is just throwing it out turn 1. Because if there's like 4 enemies, you know, and none of them get marked turn 1, then you get, you know, a ton of speed and then a ton of dodge on top of that for the rest of combat. You know, it's very powerful. And the mark bonus giving you accuracy ultimately doesn't matter, because most of the time, you know, if you have familiarity with the game, you're trying to trinket for accuracy because you want to hit cap yourself to make sure you don't miss anything. Also, her base accuracies are okay, right? So the accuracy from that doesn't really come into play that often, but the bonus crit against marked enemies is pretty good. The trouble though is setting up multiple targets to get marked, so you get like 40 crit. Very hard to do, also not worth it, I think. Like that's a lot of setup to get 40 crit, and like by then you're already wrapping up the fight. But what this is cool for is if someone goes first on your team and they mark someone, and then she throws this out after, she gets 10 crit, a lot of accuracy, and then for the other 3 enemies that she pings, she gets the dodge and speed. So this is really good just turn 1. Just throw it out. You know, whatever buffs you get are the ones you get, but it's good. Everything she has is good. For her camp skills, we have Physical Scan. She can heal someone for a decent amount of HP. 2 respite costs is really good. And then if they have Mortality, it doesn't cure the debuff, which I'm happy about. That'd be a little too good for 2 points. But if they have a Mortality debuff, you can heal them for all their life, which honestly is fine. Like it may seem really strong at 2 points, and it almost is, but like healing is like HP healing is the easiest thing to do in the game. So that's why it's, you know, good but not amazing. For her next one, she has a damage upgrade, which is Sharpened Swords, so her melee skills get more damage and crits. Very good if you just want to blow stuff up. Then she has Crest of Healing. For her next one, she can heal the party and cure their Bleed and Blight. This is essentially wound care doubled, hits the party, costs 4 points, so it can be good. You know, it could be good. Night Watch gives her her other bit of utility, because she doesn't have a lot of utility in her combat moves, but her camp skills have a lot of utility. And so this is just with Night Watch, it's a copy paste of Bandit Sense and the Houndmaster one. So it's good, you know, it's worth the 4 points. Actually, before we get to Trinkets, there's one thing I should say. This is why I had Bounty Hunter in here. She is pretty much Bounty Hunter in terms of stat lines, but has slightly better defenses, especially on the dot res. So as you see here, Bounty Hunter up to 90, and then she's, you know, got 20 on each. Really good. BH has a bit better move resist, but otherwise, her stats are more or less just a straight derivative port or whatever of Bounty Hunter. Even has more base crit than him, but Bounty Hunter's got 45 HP, 25 dodge, 7 speed. She has 45 HP. This one has the disease, 25 dodge, and 7 speed. Same 8 to 16 damage on both. So her closest comparison, I would say, is Bounty Hunter with less combat control, because BH can disrupt, stun, and all that good stuff, and she only has 1 stun, and it's still good. But if you want someone that controls the battlefield better, then BH is obviously the better choice for that. With that said, let's look at her trinkets. They're very interesting ones. So Emil's head is her common one, so 5 accuracy is really nice. Everyone likes accuracy at that level. But what I like about this is, I mean, it's clearly just better than other common trinkets, but since it's an on-kill chance for her to get another trinket, this can really help out for you to flesh out at least the next 4, you know, so you're not waiting on missions or having to buy them and stuff. You have a chance of just, you know, lottering them to appear. Next is Lunar Tier, and honestly, if this was anything else, it doesn't matter what the top 2 lines are. You know, the bonus healing is great, the stress relief is cool. The attack on self heal for restoration, even if it's for 1 round, the fact it's for 2 and it's guaranteed means that she is essentially immortal to dying from damage over time. So if you haven't played Darkest Dungeon 1, but you play DD2, regen works differently. In DD1, if you have any form of restoration, regeneration, it doesn't matter how high the dot count is, this will save you first because it triggers first. She already has pretty good dot res, so you're not going to find yourself in that situation often, but the other reason this thing is really good is it just keeps her topped off, you know? She swings maybe 3-4 times in a normal combat encounter outside of bosses, and this is healing for 6 to 8. These heals all have a chance to crit and heal some stress off, so she's really... It's really hard to kill her with this thing, and I don't know if this is going to get nerfed or not, but we'll see. It's very strong, even though it's defensive. Beast Lord, very, very strong for another offensive trinket. This just gives her kick, a lot of utility, and then all of her melee moves do a bunch of damage, and she loses some HP. And it's a relevant amount, 15% does matter, but you get a lot of stats in return. Okay, this is the one that is really important if you're going to do any form of like pod spam skills with her, and pod 42 lets her do all that, because if you ever notice well, I mean, you're watching this for the first time, but if you remember a couple minutes ago, voice crack, if you remember a couple minutes ago when I said that you get these debuffs, well, congratulations, they're gone now. Well, at least the crit on this and then the damage penalty on this. So once you get this, pod beam becomes your main move to chuck out all the time. Like if you have this, suddenly slash just becomes irrelevant, like even more so than it was, unless you're against like super high prot with no way around it. But this is really good, and the mark and buff duration from on-site, which is this one, are great. You know, extra, this is really good for bosses because they run out of mark quickly and you don't have to spend as many turns re-upping it to get value. Oops. We have her very rare trinket. This is mostly just for stunning. The damage against stunning is okay. You know, it's like the finish him treatment. I usually don't care for having a lot of damage against stun targets, but it's not bad. Any source of damage is usually good. For this, you don't even have to worry about, you know, using the bottom half of it where she gets stun chance with using spin kick or bash or whatever. The debuff on it for minus stun resist is actually pretty good on its own, because you have to remember she can always attack twice. So if you, oh, it's melee attack, but even then, so you can like shoot something and then on your turn you melee something, you know, probably bash because of the synergy, and then when you're ready you just spin kick it. So this is, yeah, these are all range. Yeah, it's good. It's not our best one at all. Like I really found more value out of these three specifically, besides her Crimson Court set, but this is okay. For her CC set, she gets, I think, her sword and her blindfold, and so this one is really good. It's not the better of the two. The two of them together are really good, but this is just a pretty good defensive trinket, and so you get 3 speed, 12 dodge, that's quite a lot. You do 0 damage on the first round, which means you're hitting Executioner's Instinct. So you use your setup move, turn 1, you do 0 damage with it. You can also burn, I was actually going to say you could burn off the damage penalty for, or by using Suppressing Fire, but actually I don't think that's how it works. But again, I'm not the most experienced with free actions because they're not, you know, a normal thing in Darkest Dungeon 1. But anyway, so you don't do any damage on the first round, and when you hit something, you mark the target, so you can always just keep marks, you know, going out, and that is pretty cool. For the other one, Broken Contract, she gets permanent riposte. This is pretty cool because that's just constant pressure in terms of damage against the enemy, and the riposte accuracy is pretty good. For those of you who don't know mechanically, like under the hood or whatever, the Man-at-Arms and Highwayman riposte accuracy is like 90 or 95, so it's very low, and it's very hard to raise it higher. But with this, she starts out at 110, which is great. And if you run both of these together, BOFA, you get the bonus accuracy. You lose some damage against marked targets, but every attack that's hit marks the target. So you get, this is actually, okay, you mark yourself. That's what it's supposed to be. So the way these work together is with the Unseeing, she hits something, marks herself, and then when she riposte, she puts the mark on something else. So she can constantly, you know, re-up her marks. So she doesn't really need other people to do it for her, which is cool. I've actually ran the Broken Contract by itself. Like, these individually are actually still good. They don't have to run them together. And then finally there's her Crystalline Trinkets, and it's pretty good for keeping her alive because it takes off the mark and dots and stuff like that. But as I said before, her base dot resists are pretty good, so she doesn't really need this one. And I don't feel like the upgrades or the other bonuses are super good, but it's okay. Like, I much rather run either the CC set or these three. I mean, that's nothing against the modders and stuff. Usually the crystal trinkets are hit and miss. They're either really good or they're just not. We'll round out the video by talking about some partners for 2B. I'm not going to include mod heroes to pair with her just because there are tons out there. So you can mix, match, do whatever. So I'm just going to talk about base game heroes, and you can make your own comparisons to mod heroes and see how they stack up. But for 2B, she obviously has a lot of mark synergy, so since she doesn't have good rank 4 damage, it's important to kind of pair her with people that can control the field, disrupt, or reach, as well as potentially a healer. And so for this is an example of a range setup. So you can use the Suppressing Fire, Pod Beam, the Spin Kick. I was going to call it the boot for some reason, probably because there's just a giant boot up there. But then use the Instinct as well. So you can use like the CC set if you wanted to, the Crimson Court set, but I'm trying to pick low-level trinket options. Like, greens aren't too hard to come by. So with this, Steady Bracer, give it a little accuracy, and then the Pod Trinket, which is what really makes the range skills pop off. Then you have Occultist going very, very supportive. Answering the Abyss, very strong. Got a mark for him, a heal, and then Weakening Curse just in case. And then you can see here with Trinkets, we have utility, and stun chance. For Bounty Hunter, so for skills we have Collect Bounty because of mark damage, Mark for Death to mark targets, and then we have Uppercut, which you can't use here, so this actually becomes either Come Hither or Finish Him, but I think Come Hither is pretty cool too, to be disruptive. You can also swap out Mark for Death and run Finish Him. As long as you have some way to mark a target, then it works. And for Trinkets, the Surgy Gloves out of the Warrens, get some accuracy, some crit, really nice to have, and then stun chance. Then obviously the party order is how I would run it, because 2B is really good in rank 2. If you want the spin kick, if you don't want spin kick, you can put her in 3, but she should be in the middle for most of your parties. And then we have Houndmaster, who kind of fixes part of our reach problem since he can throw his dog all the way to rank 4. Also cleave, and he brings some much needed damage over time to the team, because as good as 2B is, she doesn't have any DOT, so it makes it hard for her to, secure kills that she doesn't outright score besides suppressing fire. So for Houndmaster, we got Hound's Rush just to reach stuff, Hound's Harry to clean up kills and spread bleed, Mark for Death, Target Whistle because of the prod shred, and then we have Lick Wounds because extra healing with the Cultist is usually a good thing to have, since this heal's a bit inconsistent. For Trinkets, we have accuracy because we always want accuracy, and then we have bleed chance and bleed resist. And this is just an example team for you to use. All right, y'all, that's gonna do it for the video. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks to Pepper, Iris, and the team for making a very cool modded class. I will leave the link to the download in the description. Let me know how you think, or what you think about 2B, as well as what teams and people are you putting with her. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.